Score Center XL, which is the sort of next generation product based on our iPhone app called Score Center, the most downloaded sports app on the iPhone, about 5 million downloads and growing. And we've really ramped it up with what we've done in the iPad space with a bigger form factor. Again, traffic is significant, 11 million uniques each month on our mobile platform. Again, 20% of our total usage now coming from the iPhone. And there are days on NFL Sundays, particularly, when we will get more traffic on our mobile platform than we will on ESPN.com, the website. Because think about it, that you're out and about, you're in family functions, or you're at a wedding, or you're shopping, or you're anywhere, you're even in the stadium, and you've got your mobile device with you, checking scores, checking results, checking fantasy teams. Maybe if you like to put a wager down on a game, occasionally. We don't condone that, but if you do it, we understand there might be an audience that might participate in that. We're serving that content, and that's why I said, as an old newspaper guy, I sometimes say I'm a recovering print editor. I promised I wasn't going to make the mistake that a lot of my colleagues did in the print side, which was fall in love with the form factor as opposed to what we were really doing, which is creating and generating news. Nothing wrong with loving the form factor, but you can't lock yourself into it. And I've said the same thing when I got into the website space, which is I was never going to fall victim to say, I love the website. I love to access content on ESPN.com on a computer. Because at the end of the day, I do. I happen to do that. We spend a lot of time and energy making that happen. It's a very popular, effective website. But again, we're in the business of creating news. Sports news, sports scores, sports results. That's what we do. And it doesn't matter what the device is. We have to constantly be thinking about getting in front of people that way. And that's the approach we're taking at ESPN. One of the ways we do that is through a serious amount of messaging. I believe only American Idol sends more text messages out than we do. 650,000 users and growing have signed up for alerts. We send about 90 million alerts each month to our fans. 94% open rate on the messages. 94%. That's because people have chosen to get this information. They said, I need the score of my team when the game's over. I need the news from baseball when there's a player trade or an injury. They've made the choice. They've personalized the content. As a result, they're more than willing to engage with that content. And we'll talk a little bit about how we, try to generate some revenue against that as well. And then obviously the application space, as I talked about. We're building obviously for iPhone, for Android, for the iPad, really trying to take advantage of the form factor, the UI, the ease in which we can serve content in that space. As I said, our Score Center app is the leading sports app on the iPhone, and it's, I have to say, as a consumer of sports, if I walked away from my job and what I get paid to do, as a consumer of sports, it is a fantastic service. It has everything at the fingertips that I need, and I can literally carry around with me wherever I go. We've tried to branch out into specific areas in the iPhone apps. I'm just only going to show a couple here today. I talked about Score Center. It's really an incredibly broad product. We have 15 different sports from 500 different leagues around the globe represented in Score Center. So if you want a soccer score from La Liga, or for the English Premier League, or if you want a cricket score from India, Pakistan, or if you want an NBA score, or if you want a college basketball score, we're trying to roll that all into one application that you can personalize and you can choose the order of and you can decide how you want it to display for you. With the World Cup coming up here in a couple of months, we have a big countdown clock on campus in Bristol. In Connecticut that shows every day. It's literally this countdown clock, except it's on massively sized on the side of a building. It's one of the biggest events we are going to ever undertaken at ESPN. We're going to show all of the games on our air. It's going to be the Olympics and then some in terms of a production effort. We are going obviously to support that effort completely in the digital space with what we're doing on the website and obviously what we're doing on the iPhone. And the iPad. The app is terrific. It's got in-depth information from the draw to the last game. You're going to get real-time scores. You're going to get video highlights. You're going to get player news. You're going to get information about all of your teams. We have a product we call the Soccer Power Index we launched that ranks all the 32 teams based on their strengths and weaknesses and strengths of opponents that updates every time a team plays. It's a dynamic application. It's just a robust tool in a robust space. And then obviously, as we've talked about, or I've talked about, I guess, a little bit, the iPad. We launched with the ScoreCenter XL, but what's interesting about the iPad, and I've already, I saw it in the production phase of it, but as a user already now for a couple of days, it struck to me as well, is that the application is fantastic, and our ScoreCenter application is really tailor-made for that space. I probably shouldn't say steroids in the world of sports today, but it's like our ScoreCenter app on steroids. But what's also great about the iPad is the ability just to browse websites, existing websites, in a much easier, much cleaner fashion. In some ways, it's easier to even browse than if you're doing it on a computer because there's no mouse. There's no clicking around and pull downs. You're just multi-touching to get what you want to do. In fact, when in advance of the iPad launch, we redid the version of our ESPN.com website that you get on the iPad. It browser sniffs to make sure what you're searching for, what you're looking for, and we actually have created more spacing in some of the navigation, so it's a little easier to touch with your finger. We've actually redid our entire video process on the website. It was all in Flash. Of course, we all know that the iPhone and the iPad does not support Flash, so we redid all of the video presentation on ESPN.com. So if you access it through the iPad or through the iPhone now, you'll get a satisfying video experience. Again, the opportunity here in this space, whether it's this particular device or similar devices, I don't think that's as important as the fact that this is just a massively convenient tool that you have to, as a consumer, once you have it, it's hard to sort of go back. And as news producers and as content producers, we need to be in that space and delivering the information they want when they want it. Here's just some screens of what we're doing in the ScoreCenter app. There's live video that we can stream in our rights with the NBA and some other leagues. We obviously have video on demand and highlights. We can send you the video of the home run right after your favorite fantasy player just hit the home run. And it's obviously tremendous about data. We are just think constantly about how can we serve data in a smarter, easier to use, intuitive way for fans. Because the form factor is small. We know the amount of time it's a little bit bigger in the iPad now, but we know the amount of time is limited, so we got to get you what you want very quickly. You have a question? Yeah.
On the iPad?
Yeah.
Now that you all have to do the ScoreCenter app,
Yeah.
will you be able to watch the live stream on ESPN3?
Wow, you jumped right ahead of me. That's great. The answer is yes, but not yet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, but thank you for bringing it up. The fantasy application, fantasy space is huge for us, and there isn't quite the same equivalent. I ran the internet division of the Journal-Sentinel in Milwaukee, and I was trying to come up with some sort of fantasy game for our state government coverage. It just didn't really happen. Although there was times it was like Fantasyland, so that's another topic. But in the sports space specifically, I just can't emphasize enough how important that engagement is for us. Our fantasy players are the most loyal users of our site. Not only they are on our site all the time using the application to play the game, as it were, but they're the biggest consumer of news and information about that sport that we have, the biggest consumer of stats and data, the biggest consumer of video, because it's a competition. And obviously, as I said earlier, sports is tribal. Inherently, if you're a sports fan, there's like a level of